and you get paid from it. So that's really good. Your first year you get paid $50. Second year you get paid $75, and then your third year you get paid $100. And if you like continue, you just keep getting paid $100 each week. Yeah, it's like fun, educational. You can like, you learn a lot actually. It's like not only do you learn about food and like how to grow your own food, you learn about money management and survival skills and stuff like that. You work with like other kids in like, well, I guess that signed up for the program, and it teaches you to like be more social. It taught me to be more social because I'm pretty quiet. It taught me how to be a leader, especially this year, because I had to lead four other people in my group, and yeah, basically show them what to do and how they're supposed to do it, stuff like that. And it's important, like this growing food is important because, well, especially in this area, because it's a food desert and people don't have like access to grocery stores, and it's like it's better. The food is better than what you would get at the grocery store because it's like grown, like you know what's in it. Or can I say that? It's like you know that there weren't any, what is that called? Yeah, pesticides, poisons, stuff like that put in it, and it's like all natural and organic. So we sell food during the program and after, like in the fall program. And like at the end of the summer program, we split all the profits from when we sold the food during the summer program at the end. And we basically get like maybe like an extra, I don't know, just some extra change from all the hard work that we did. You learn how to like plant and grow your own food, and it really opens like your world up to other people, because I know my mom, she asked me a lot about farming, and there are people that come in like the anthem people, they like volunteer and they ask us a whole bunch of questions about ourselves, and yeah, it's just like it's a way to open up. And yeah, I think I'm good.
Can you shout out the program again for us, Jordan?
Oh, it's called, wait. Yeah, it's Lawrence Community Gardens. Yeah.
All right, thank you, guys. All right, guys, are you ready for this food conversation presentation panel? I have 3 different names for it because we're building it out as we grow. It's cooperative. All right, so coming all the way from Dayton, Ohio, I would like to introduce Amaha Sellassie. Mr. Sellassie is a peace builder, a social healer, a freedom fighter, a network weaver, and a lover of humanity. Amaha serves as the president of the Gem City Market Cooperative Board of Directors. He is an assistant professor of science, sociology, and a director of the Center of Applied Social Issues at Sinclair Community College in Dayton, Ohio. And he is going to give us a presentation that I look forward to. Come on up.
Greetings, everybody. thankful to be here today. Thank you for the invite. And it's interesting because about like 2 or 3 months ago, I first got introduced to the Kepler Institute. I was doing some online searching about some co-op stuff, and then I came across some of the series that you guys had on YouTube. So I've been like a fan in the background for a while now. So it's even more thankful to be here today. And I think in this hour it's real. Well, first of all, like I got a PowerPoint, but we don't have to actually use it if we don't if the vibe goes differently, because I'm real interested in this and the co-creation, what I mean? So like if people have questions or whatever, what I mean, we can always just go into that. But like especially in this hour, it's really knowing that like we're on the offense. I know sometimes people feel like, oh, like we're battling all these things and this, that, and other. And that is true. But when we're looking at the root and the foundation, like those that are seeking to be rooted in love, those that are seeking to acknowledge the dignity and worth of every human being, what I mean? Like we're on the rise, right? And we truly are on the offense, like there's this wind that's going because it's a set time, you know what I mean? And so I'm thankful to be here. I'm thankful to see everybody in this room, because like, this is what it's all about right now, because we are the ones we've been waiting for, and so like, how do we rise to the occasion right now and connect by our gifts and talents, like I call it like producing wheat, you know what I mean? And like that wheat seed got to produce wheat in this hour, you know what I mean? And then connect by our wheat, because I used to look at opportunity as something outside of ourselves, but the more I'm learning, opportunity is created by we bring our gifts together. Like we create our own opportunity, we create our own liberated zones as we bring our gifts and talents together, you know what I mean? And that's the power we have to transform our lived environment, right? And so spaces like this are just super valuable in this hour. And it's interesting because I was at a gathering of Black cooperators in Pittsburgh last weekend. And then I was talking to somebody a couple of days ago, and we were talking about like how to connect Dayton with Pennsylvania and West Virginia. And I was like, yeah, because we're also talking about Indiana, Kentucky, and Ohio. You know what I mean? And so like how we keep building out this network. And I've been sending pictures like this. When I pulled in today, first I was like, do I got the right place? You know what I mean? And then I turned my car like, oh, these are my people. When I saw that sign out front about disrupting and this, that, and the other, I was like, yeah. And then so I was sending pictures to my folks in Dayton, like, yo, we gotta come up here, you know what I mean, and make a visit. And we extend the invitation for y'all to come down and visit Dayton as well, so we can continue to build this out, right? Because I think like part of this work in this hour is just knowing that we're interdependent, and that, King would call it a single garment of destiny, or in African philosophy, I heard Mr. Oak say, Ubuntu, that I am because you are, that my humanity is realized in the presence of other humanity. And, it's not just a good idea, you know what I mean? It's the lived, it's actual reality. You know what I mean? And we got to know that, and we got to stand upon that, and we got to walk upon that. And the more that we step into that, the more we release that on the earth, right? And so even like building structures, you have an idea, you put resources to it, and so it's like leveraging our resources towards the idea of, interdependence and the just economy and all of these things, solidarity economy, right? That we can build this compelling that's so distinct that it makes the old obsolete, you know what I mean? And that's this whole thing of, acting to learn and learning to act, right? So I appreciate everything that I've been witnessing here, you know what I mean? Because cooperation really is like a moral force, to move us to better ground. So yeah, I'm sorry. I'm from Dayton, Ohio. My name is Amaha. And I had the privilege to walk with the community towards building the Gym City Market. And also we have a formation called Co-op Dayton, where we have 8 or 9 co-ops, from the Gym City Market to, we got a doula co-op, we have Makerspace, we got Guided by Mushroom. We got Grow Dayton, which is like a farming co-op. We have Clifton Craft House, like an art collective house. And so we're trying to build this cooperative economy. But today I'm here to talk about food systems and the Gem City market. You can go ahead and put on the PowerPoint. And so the Gem City market is a full service grocery store that was built in an area that was underdeveloped. Product of redlining. Like some of the things that we know is that across the country, redline areas, you're 3 times less likely to have access to fresh fruits and vegetables supermarkets. And you're also 3 times more likely to have, over excessive, abundant access to high fructose corn syrup, and things that are deteriorate our body, So, the community kind of came together, right? And so I'm going to talk a little about the story, talk a little bit about like why co-ops, and then I'm really interested in the dialogue. You know what I mean? Like I love to learn. I'm kind of selfish that way. So, so one of the things that I want to say in the beginning that is that we use this phrase that it's more than a market but a movement, right? And we did that because sometimes you could try to build the thing, but you got to look past the thing to actually get to the thing. You know what I mean? And so, I had some board members like, oh, we can't, we got to think past the market, right? Like, how does the market fit into this larger strategy? You know what I mean? Like, what is this collective hope that we're generating in our community? Collective hope meaning like how we put our gifts and talents towards, co-creating this future that we want to live in together, right? Like this notion of that shared future, And so so that's how we got started building on the market. You can go to the next slide. This was I think this was the day when we got the land and everything. So I'm gonna turn this up a little bit. So I first want to start with the definition of health, right? And I think that's real important when we're talking about building co-ops in an area that's been underdeveloped, because that underdevelopment has created concentrated disadvantage in the area that we're transforming. And one of the best tools to leverage resources, like I heard earlier, just another, is to build a health case, right? How the design of the community impacts the health, right? Some people call it the weathering effect, right? Or like allostatic load, which means the body of a 40-year-old the 40-year-old has a body of a 50-year-old because of the stress and the impact of the lived environment, right? Because that zip code determine life expectancy, right? And so how the environment itself deteriorates the body. And so when making a case, for me, I feel that Black co-ops are for survival, like if it's not going to be done by us, it ain't going to happen. So how do we build this case around health that we can educate the community and also, try to leverage some resources. So so health is a dynamic state, and it is, I used to think of health as being, diabetes or heart disease, you know what I mean? But just looking at a more broad, holistic, right? Because really every structure has a health impact, and sometimes we separate those things out. We have health and then we have systems and structures, right? But every system has a health outcome, you know what I mean? And so to me, building food co-ops is a way of building health power, right? How are we building this power to transform and create better health outcomes by design, right? You can go to the next one. So we're looking at health equity, right? And health equity deals with, how we rebalance power. Because whenever there's negative health outcomes, it's a result of a power imbalance, So I know a lot of people have heard of the social determinants of health, probably, like how our communities are arranged. But I think it's also important to look at the structural determinants of health, meaning who's making the decisions that has the outcomes that are the social determinants of health, right? So looking deeper into these ideas, what are some of these underlying assumptions and how they're being reproduced to sustain inequality, right? And like how we're paying attention to how we're making decisions and how we're looking at situations, right? Okay, we can go to the next slide. All right, so I'm gonna tell a story of Dayton, but you know, almost every city had redlining, and so it's a common story, right? And that's one of the things that I think, especially for you know, areas that have been underdeveloped, is that, you know, we have some shared narratives. You know, they're gonna be a little different, but like we can make these larger cases, right? For like, you know, there was a large systemic thing that we was put up against, right? And so now how we can build that common story to leverage something on a more, you know, national, statewide level. So this is Dayton, right? Right here is the river that divides Dayton. So something interesting about Dayton, the 5 rivers meet in Dayton, right? So like, you know, it was a powerful indigenous land. You know what I mean? People met, they traded, this, that, and the other. But over time, the river became like this point of segregation, right? Where 98% of African Americans that live on the west side, live in Dayton, live on the west side, right? 94% of white that live in Dayton live on the east side. Then we have the Turkish community, Latino community, African refugees, right? So we're this area that's known as hyper segregation, you know, like we're like probably 9th in the country, somewhere around there, right? And so I want us to look at these maps, right? So we have this green area right here, right? Everybody familiar with that redlining map, right? The basis of it, right? So we got the green, we got the red, yellow and blue, right? The market is right here, actually.
Maybe just do
like a brief thing on redlining. Okay, yeah, sure. Okay, so talking about design, right? And talking about the underlying assumption, right? Redlining maps are the product of, I would say, white imagination, right? Which basically says that all white areas are safe to invest. Blue and yellow, somewhat safe to invest. Red areas, which would be all Black areas, do not invest, or to use my mom's vernacular, not no, but hell no, right? And so when that was combined with an idea, that's why I use the word imagination, that Blacks and whites cannot live together. If they do, property values will go down. And so they create these mechanisms to pool all African Americans in one part of the community. And then you can't invest in this community, right? And so this cycle of underdevelopment happened. But now, you know, legally, I want to say like 64, 65 with the Fair Housing Act, right? It got, you know, illegal, but we'll still see the impacts there. Like even in Dayton, this area doesn't get broadband, you know what I mean? Like today, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's interesting how like these underlying assumptions and these designs still perpetuate. That's why I started with this ideology or like talking about the mind, right? Because, you know, like these thoughts are what's creating, you know? And so in this hour, I think we really got to reimagine Blackness, right? And when I say that to its fullest extent, is that it includes the whole human race, right? Because like there was never this thing of separating, you know, or this hierarchy, you know what I mean? And so it's like how do we get to our common humanity, you know what I mean? You know, I ramble sometimes, sorry. But yeah, so this is the map, right? So blue and yellow areas, who would be there? So this was all white, red is all Black. What would blue and yellow be? Good guess, but huh? Nope. It was actually okay. Let me do something. If you identify as white, raise your hand. Okay. If you have, okay, you can put your hands down. If you have Irish, Italian, Jewish, Polish in your background, raise your hand. Okay, y'all are new white, right? Like you wasn't white by this definition. You know what I mean? There's a whole process, you know what I mean? You had to change your religion, change your last name. There was a process that you had to do to be acclimated into the white definition. So this will be those areas. You know what I mean? Like this is a heavy Jewish area at one point, right? So yeah, so that's what I'm talking about, this notion of imagination, you know what I mean? And how we reconfigure how we understand human beings, you know, what it means to be human, that we can then build the policy structures, you know what I mean, that acknowledge that full dignity, that we can release all the gifts, you know what I mean? Because even in this room right now, you know what I mean? Like what could we really do if we really put ourselves all in? Like if we knew what we knew and we understood what time at hand, and we're like, yo, I'm in this. I'm putting all my gifts and talents, right, to build this thing. Like what we could do with just, you know, 30, 40 people in this room, like the power we have, right? So, okay, I want us to pay attention to this map, especially that just kind of get the basic layout, because you can go to the next screen. W.E.B. Du Bois talks about the problem, the first African-American PhD. He said the problem of the 20th century is going to be the color line, right? This is right coming out of the period of enslavement. But I want to make the argument that the color line has now been translated into the opportunity line, opportunity meaning conditions favorable for the attainment of a goal. So this is an opportunity map, right? Look at that: health, housing, economic, education. White meaning very low opportunity, dark blue meaning high opportunity. Here's that river again. Does anybody see a connection or pattern? What do you see?
Where it seems like that's where most of the red line is.
Exactly. So the red line areas, because of 30 and 40 years of underdevelopment, now are the low opportunity areas, you know? And so like, that's a direct correlation that happens all across the country, right? And so it's like, you know, this didn't happen by happenstance, right? Like we understand that that underlying design. And so then how we utilize that to move us forward, right? So in 2015, you know, in Dayton, we had 40,000 residents, no full service grocery store, right? No grocery store on the west side of Dayton, you know? And so these maps came out that measure opportunity. And we're like, yo, just within Dayton, look at the degree of difference by zip code, right? Let's go to the next slide. Kind of jump ahead of myself a little bit. All right, so I wanted to show this real quick so we can get an idea of how this works, right? So 85% of those that were white lived in the very high areas. 19% of white lived in the very low area. And you see how it steps down. Anytime you see that, you know that it's structured, because it's not like loosey-goosey, you know what I mean? Like when it steps down like that, you know there's some kind of design in the background, right? You can go to the next slide. And so the health outcomes: low, moderate, very high, right? So life expectancy from 69 to 75, heart disease, cancer, 268 going down. Now this one, which is insurance, it breaks that pattern. Why would this break the pattern?
Because African communities use more health insurance to help provide.
Exactly. Like you get aid here. Like this is a cliff, and then you get it again, right? So that's the reason why it's not there. Okay. So I'm using all of this because like this shows like the health case for why we use co-ops, and more importantly, like how we can leverage some resources to get it. You can go to the next slide. Okay. So Dayton's food apartheid, right? We use food apartheid and not food deserts because when we say food deserts, it implies natural, right? And so I think the thing that we always want to challenge is what is natural? You know what I mean? Is independence natural or is interdependence natural? Right? Like really like challenging like how these things are constructed, right? So like if Deb invited us all to go to the Mojave Desert to make the desert an oasis, and she was gonna pay. She got funding, she gonna pay each year to get us to go. How many of y'all would go? A free trip. I'm there. Look, I'm there every year. You know what I mean? Like we can try it one year, like, dang, Deb, we didn't get it. But you know, if you get some more funding, you know what I mean, we can get bigger buckets and like, you know, like I will make this my life project, right? To make the desert an oasis, right? But all likelihood, it's not going to happen, right? And so I think when we use the word desert, we disconnect ourselves from human agency, right? But when we say food apartheid, we're acknowledging that it was a human design, right? That created this area of underdevelopment. And that gives us hope. Because if it's been imagined, what can we do? Reimagine it, right? And that's how we release our power, because hope is connected to our ability that we have the belief in our ability to change something. You know, and the more I'm hopeful, the more I'm willing to put my gifts to the center of the circle, you know? And so it's like, by shifting the language, we shift the context of how people understand, and we're building this shared language, this shared experience together. So yeah, our Kroger's closed, you know, all these closed. And so we had, 1,000 people at our grocery store. And when we first started, we were like, you know what? So we knew that we wanted to build a grocery store, and we were like, you know what? This is Kroger's. We're gonna get this Kroger's. We'll be done in like 3 months. Like when we first started, like, oh, it's gonna be quick. We'll get this Kroger's, put in a grocery store, and then that'll be it, right? But we found out that the density wasn't there to support the Kroger's, and so I'm talking about it in a second. But go to the next slide. Okay, so at this time, 2015, 1 in 5 families had trouble obtaining food, and like we were, I think it was second in the nation when it came to food insecurity at this time, right? So like the need was there. So I remember Mr. OT mentioned that like it's self-help, right? That it's like, co-ops are built upon needs, right? Like how can we come together to meet our needs together? That's a part of that cooperative advantage, how we can leverage our resources and aggregate it, right? Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so this is Kenya Baker, the amazing Kenya Baker organizer. And so once we realized that we wanted to build a grocery store, it was like, okay, so how do we go about doing this? And let me be clear, you can go to the next slide. Let me be clear about something. How much grocery store experience did we have amongst us in 2015? I hear people laugh, like, y'all laughing? Like, no, I'm playing. Yeah, we had 0, right? You know what I mean? Like we eat and that's it. You know what I mean? We go shop, you know what I mean? And so I'm saying that to say that like we had to learn this, you know what I mean? We reached out to FCI and to other organizations to learn and grow in this, right? So 2015, we came together and so in 2016, we incorporated Co-op Dayton, which is kind of like our incubator to build the co-op. But one thing that I mentioned on my slide a little bit out of order is that the first thing that we did was we put out a survey, and we were like, we feel we need a grocery store, but we want to hear from the community. You know what I mean? So we went to bus stops and to laundromats and to hair salons and barber shops, right? Like we went to where the people was, and we asked them, like, do you want a grocery store? Would you shop there? And what are things that you would be interested in? And about a month and a half, we got like 1,500 back, right? Which said that, yes, we want a grocery store. And so then from there, it was like, oh, okay. So now we got to figure out like how to do this. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, so people saying, yes, we have 0 expertise. So it was like, okay, so how are we going to pull this together? So you can go to the, this was actually our first community meeting back in, this is probably like 2016-ish. One thing that we did, which is kind of unorthodox, but I think it like is part of our success, is I've seen some co-ops where it's like on Monday, you agree to be a co-op. By Wednesday, you're selling shares, right? We didn't go that route. You know what I mean? Like once we understood that the need was there and that the community wanted to think, you want to walk with the community, not for the community, right? Then we went and did our research and went kind of underground for a while, right? So that when we popped back out, we had a solid plan, all these things, and then we started selling shares, right? Because I think sometimes when you sell shares quickly, you don't have a lot of momentum. You don't know, like you lose. It's hard to hold that energy for a long period of time. Because like in the first year, I want to say we had like 600-700 members. You know what I mean? And it was because like we built a momentum before we actually, initiated selling shares. You can go to the next slide. Okay, so one of the key things was staffing the movement, right? We were all volunteer at first, and it's very hard to hold momentum, all volunteer, because there's meetings that are happening, there's opportunities to connect with people, and so Leela Klein, right here, I remember we were in a meeting with her. She applied for a fellowship, and she got it to help build the Gym City Market. We didn't even know the name yet, I think, at that point. And I remember we were sitting in the boardroom, and she was like, "Well, I got this money. Can I be can I use it for this project?" And we we're like, "Oh, sure." You know what I mean? So that was how she became like our first like project manager. You know what I mean? That was her full-time job, was like how to pull all this together. And then a little bit later, we were able to bring in Kenya Baker, who started out being a volunteer, and then over time, we were able to find some funding to get her in. So I was I'm a public sociologist, and so I do action research, and so Kenya and I, we go way back doing organizing stuff in the past. So it was just a natural thing to bring Kenya in. You can go to the next slide. Okay, so one of our first things was finding the right location and building the case, right? And that was a challenge because this whole conversation of mission and margin came in, so like all of West Dayton and even past West, like when you get further west from Dayton, it's like Jefferson Township, which is like super Black farmland, but I mean, there's nothing out there, as far as like, hospital care, grocery stores, and so we wanted to be kind of further west to kind of meet that whole need, but the density wasn't there. So this whole mission and margin to find the right place that we could meet our place it was accessible to people that need it most, but also we had the density to hold it. So that took a little bit of a process to find our location. Go next slide. Okay, so we did market research with AWG. This was our meeting where we were building our mission statement. So one of the things I think is key to cooperatives, building cooperatives, is participation. Because people value what they co-create together, So it's whole notion of like not doing things for, but doing things with, what I mean? We're highly relational, like we build deep relationships, right? And I appreciate, I heard a couple people mentioning that today. So the mission statement, we co-created. We had about 200 people, we're in the basement of a church. They had different rooms. We broke it all out, and we started building our mission statement, right? And I remember at one point, so we had like the rough ideas, and then by this point we had formed a board, and so then the board took all the ideas, synthesized together, and then we brought it back out to the community, like did we hear correctly, what we thought we heard, right? And the word clean came up a lot, right? And I remember one of my board members specifically being like, "We can't put clean in the mission statement." I was like, "No, the community said they want clean, so clean gonna be in this mission statement. Why do you think clean was so important?
Because the food is adulterated. Of course, you have ethnic residents that are observing dietary rules. It works for both. One hand washes the other in that regard.
Yeah. So, the food accessible at that time wasn't the greatest, right? But then the food places had dirty floors, brown meat, right? And like, we kind of like, sometimes you acclimate to things that are unacceptable. My time up?
Well, you got 5 minutes for question and answer.
Okay. Let me go forward a slide. You can go another one. That's a trader. Go another one. Go another one. All right, so we have inside the store, we got a mix of 70% traditional, 30% organic. And we did that because the area was the income that have a lot of disposable income. So we want to make sure that we're meeting the needs inside the community. You can go to the next slide. That's my baby. We can go to the next slide. Go ahead and go to the next one. Okay, so I want to show something about, so we're worker owned and community owned. So we have a structure, so our board is not there yet because we wanted all the workers to work there a year yet before we start transition. So we've been open about a year and a half now, so we're in the process right now. So workers we're a 9-share board, 5 workers, 3 community members, and then 1 seat for co-op Dayton. We're kind of like the vision holder, like kind of like holding that North Star. And we geocoded one of the community, actually 2 of the community seats, because we wanted to make sure that those that are living in the area always had a seat on the board. And I can talk about this more later. Any questions? You can go next one. Okay, so part of our creation process, right? We were highly participatory. This was one of our annual meetings. We did deep canvassing. We did deep listening, right? How many of y'all canvass and this whole notion of like, knocking 40 doors an hour, you know what I mean? But like, we're about building deep relationships. So if we only hit 1 door an hour and you were able to hold a conversation for that hour, that was a huge win. That was, you the OG, if you can hold a conversation for an hour with a resident, right? Because we want to build these deep relationships. So we totally switched the narrative because, movements move at the speed of trust, right? So the more trust we have, we can cooperate, we can collaborate, you know what I mean? And it's the strength of the connection, not the critical mass, right? Like, like Adrian Brown and others talk about. Okay, yeah, we can go to the next one. So some of the things we did, public education, tabling events, yeah, youth cook-offs, because for a while you didn't have the building. So like how we're building the co-op part, right? Like the relationship part. This was our groundbreaking. And you notice everybody has shovels. Because oftentimes we see a groundbreaking, you got the mayor, a couple people, they got their shovels, and everybody else around, you know what I mean? We're like, no, like we did this together, so we're all gonna have our shovels. We're gonna celebrate this day together, you know what I mean? And so this whole notion of like how we're building power and how we're building hope. Or like I like to call it how we change recipients into co-creators, right? Because we gotta be the protagonist in our own story. You know what I mean? Like, what is the story that we're moving from? And what is the story that we're merging into? What is the story that we're creating together? You know what I mean? So all of these are ways of like how we build this collective power. Next one. That was our a picture from, I think it was the day when we first named the land. Another one. This is our grand opening. Yeah, get that. It was collective effort, right? And so even the architecture, participatory. We had a long process of like the community giving feedback, right? Like we got Sister Yatende, we put a Dinka symbols inside the market because we wanted to mark the space, right? Yes, this is our groundbreaking. You can go to the next one. This is, yeah. Whoop. Okay, yeah, this is, we put our produce in the front because we wanted everybody to see it when they came in. You can go next one. Popcorn machine. I'm a popcorn fanatic, so so here's different things. You can go another one. You can go one more. That might be the last one. Okay, there's one more. Yeah, this is our Michelle, our manager for on the floor. And a couple things I want to mention. I open questions. 80% of the workers are from the community within the trade area. And boy, we use consultants in the process, and sometimes the consultants give you different advice, and we had to tease that part out, and so it was suggested to us that our community wouldn't prioritize the fresh stuff. They wanted just like, the box stuff and this, that, and the other. But like, as we've been open, it's been the opposite. Like the more we put into, I'm vegetarian, but like the more we put into our meat department and our produce department, the more successful we've become. Like they prioritize that. So now we got a community butcher that like literally tries to know the families, and you know what I mean? Like we're trying to put that community feel, because we're trying to build like a third space, right? Where, you build these relationships inside the community. So I probably like to talk for rambling too much. Take questions.
I got a couple questions. Do you think SNAP and WIC, was there some sort of TIF funding in order to be able to acquire the space? What is the membership cost for?
Okay. Okay. So what's the last one? The last question?
Membership cost.
Membership cost is $100 one-time share, like lifetime membership. Sometimes we get these matches, like we partner with different community organizations and the hospital network. We brought all the hospital networks together, which is why I had the help case, because I'm trying to show how to actually do it. And so that would be $50. Or if you were on any kind of stuff, but you didn't have to prove it, you had to just say you were on it, then you got it. It would be a $10 membership. All memberships are the same type, you know what I mean? It's like, same value, same worth. But we just try to meet people where they were. We have EBT and SNAP, and we got produce perks. So for every dollar of produce you get, you get another $1 of produce for free. It took us a while to get WIC. It took us about like 6-7 months, and we recently had to pause WIC because partly of the structural design, as far as how the program is implemented, and the shortage, like we were losing a lot of money, and so like we're in the process of like how to tweak it and then start it back up again. So it's probably gonna be a couple months before we take WIC again. But and then what was the middle question? Yeah, so we did a new market tax credit, which is real complicated, but a lot of people are having to do it. We did a campaign to get donations, and so like we split it so that the building was part of the finance campaign, and then we used the shares for the internal operations to run it. Yeah.
So, any recommended readings, and I'm just curious, a real clear philosophical orientation, which is so important. How did you acquire?
How to acquire?
How'd you get that? I heard you mention.
Oh.
I heard you mention.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good question. That's that for, I think. I think a real good reading is something like, is it Cooperation as a Social Practice? Because like I think it's an amazing book of breaking down like how cooperation begins in the body, and it gives you some good case studies. I don't fully know how I got it. I started doing community work. I'll get you next. I started by just focusing on love and healing relationships, because I just felt that we were greater than what we were. And then I was working on my aunt's gas station, and I went back to school, and then that's when I read King's book, A Stride Towards Freedom. And he said agape love was community. And I was like, wait a minute, I've been talking about agape love in the community all these years. And then like, how's he connecting it to community? Then I was like, okay, from Christian perspective, many members in one body. So now I started realizing that like, this whole time I've been talking about love, it's actually been community building. So then I was like, okay, any conference, any book, anything I could find on community, I just was devouring it, right? To try to learn this thing. And then, it's just started to grow from there.
All right, so I have some questions
Okay.
from our virtual audience that I want to mix in.
Yeah, she has one too, but yeah, please.
Okay, so, cooperative development requires a lot of deep relationship building and participation. How do you balance that with the urgency of the moment and communities who are in survival mode?
Yeah, no, that's a real question, Yeah, I think it's like, with the African philosophy, if you want to go fast, go alone, we want to go far, go together, right? And so I think it's like knowing that like it seems slow, but if we're building institutions that can like be forever or for a long time, like that process it's a slow process, you know what I mean? And one thing that we didn't do, which I kind of wish we did, is like some people that they're like I'll use food co-ops for an example. Is like you're building the co-op, but then you have like a buyers club in the meantime. So like you're building these habits and you're building this community around food while you're still building, so that there's different ways to kind of meet someone now while also like focusing in on the future. But yeah, like it's a deep process, a lot of unlearning, and yeah, that it takes time.
Two questions. Are people able to shop at the co-op who do not belong?
Yes. There's no requirement to shop at the Gym City Market,
Is there a price there?
I
I guess what I'm saying is some co-ops.
I get you, like you get a discount if you're a member.
Yeah, you get a discount if you're a member. If not, you pay a little higher price. Is your co-op like
Yeah, right now, no. Like we're working on how to create more member benefit. And hopefully like we're in the process of switching suppliers. And I think when we get the new supplier online, we're going to be able to do that. But right now, it's been hard because it's hard keeping the prices low. We pay $15 an hour on average, which is higher than Kroger's. So like we're trying to thread this real hard needle, It's like right now, like there's not a whole lot of financial benefit for being a member. We got 5,000 members right now, like 5,030 or something. Oh, 5,300, something like that. Well, yeah, two questions, or that was it? Okay. I'm following you, so
Okay.
yeah.
I'll mix in another, virtual.
Yeah, I'll get you guys.
So Resistance Community Cooperative closed in 2019, and 2 of its organizations participated in a beautiful
Yeah.
mortem
Yeah.
panel of the rise and decline. What did Gym City learn from this experience that may inform its current or future development? And are there specific lessons for Black urban food cooperative developments that people here should consider?
Now that's a question. Yeah, that was a question. Renaissance wasn't able to continue, but like if we're looking at the movement and how we're learning from each other, like Renaissance was like a key piece in this, and we learned a lot. So we were kind of like maybe the second or third to come after Renaissance, and the key of organizing was like a huge piece that you have to keep organizing, you know what I mean? And we haven't done that the best, right? And so we're still working on how to continue the organizing piece with capacity levels, but we've learned a lot, just like the importance of the GM, and having someone who really knows grocery store, because we ended up doing a shift in our GM at one point, and our current GM, our previous GM was amazing in a lot of ways, but there's just some nuances that they didn't fully know from a lack of experience, and our new one had like 40 years experience, and it's like the way that he has conversations with some of our vendors, and I was like, whoa, I didn't know you could do that, you know what I mean? Like the next level, you know what I mean? So yeah.
And then, we got 2 questions and then.
You mentioned, you've been in, existing about a year and a half, and you got like 5,000 members.
Yeah.
If you wanted to be an owner, do you have to be from that community, or how does that work?
No. Anyone could be an owner. I want to say like We haven't done a graph lately, but it's probably about 60-ish% are from the trade area, and then some more from outside the region. But yeah, anybody can join and support. You have to be individuals, like businesses or institutions can also join, but they'll be like a supporter share. They wouldn't have the ability to vote. But yeah, so anybody can join.
And then, sir, your question.
You said about fancy your, say that you're vegetarian, I'm not going to.
Yeah, thanks.
But, I was recently on a, lifestyle medicine seminar, and they put on a bunch of docs and stuff like this, and you were talking about, okay, just the average, and you're not average guy, but the average Joe who's coming and saying, okay, we want clean food, okay, and the doctor talking about, we want clean food, and they didn't talk about the part that they talked about desert. So now my question is that clean food to me, I've been a vegetarian for 40 years.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Clean food to me is, you mentioned low, corn syrup, something like this.
Yeah.
Are you attempting, and I know it's difficult because the majority of the population not interested in really what clean food is and what
Right.
food is going to help you to have a healthy lifestyle. So are you, when you said that they were put produce in and people wanted to come and get real food versus what I call fake food?
Yeah.
Is that something that's kind of ongoing and you're kind of inching it in, or how do you see that?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely believe that like food is medicine, and we even have a teaching kitchen where people can learn how to cook, different foods and in a healthier way. But we're very intentional to not food shame, it's like we want to meet people where they are, and like as long as they have the option, you know what I mean? Like that's where that compelling thing comes in. Let people go where they go, continue to educate them, but keep the power within them to make the decision. And we have like a 3-tiered even pricing structure. So we have like some that are, very accessible. Then we have like a mid-tier range, and then like we have like for those that are looking for more organic and stuff, like so we have different pricing strategies and ways and education, and we got some things marked inside the store to kind of like talk about like the health benefits and stuff, but we leave it up to the people to make their own decision.
All right, so we'll have to keep the conversation with Amaha going at a later time. As you close out, could you please tell people any way that they can reach you to continue the conversation outside of here?
Sure. I think, well, I'll give you my email, international morality, all one word, at gmail.com. You can go to our website, gymcitymarket.com, or it might be org, can't remember. I won't get the email directly, but like if you put me in the tagline or something, they'll send it to me. Or I got a website, I forget what it is, but if you type in my name, it'll show. I think it's like Amaha Sellassie something. I don't know. It'll be there too. But yeah, I would love to continue to build, and I would love to send an invitation for folks to come to Dayton, and we would love to bring a crew up here as well.
Thank you.
Cool.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, so our next speaker is from the city, specifically from the East Side gang. I would like to introduce an established community wealth builder, Ms. Ashley Garvitz. Ms. Garvitz believes that in the power of advocacy and its ability to affect long-lasting change, As a dedicated neighbor to her Indianapolis East Side community, she believes in bringing together neighbors, community stakeholders, and other decision makers to strengthen and improve the quality of life. So can we please give a round of applause to Ms. Garvitz? No problem.
I guess I have one up now.
Yes, actually, one little side, sorry, y'all, one little intermission.
Yeah, I put a video link on screen, so we can,
Thank you for the little intermission. I got excited with the last presentation. I'm like, we have something similar we're doing here too.
Okay, this is it.
Yeah, well, yes, sorry. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for the warm introduction, and first and foremost, thank you for your ever-growing capacity of loving on the community in the various facets that you bring. Just briefly, I wanted to first kind of start off by showing a video of something that is currently really igniting our work around our equitable food systems building that we do. So I'll go ahead and get us kicked off with that.
Multicultural spot.
Pass that out there.
Multicultural Spotlight, presented by Chevrolet. Find new roads.
Welcome back. The neighborhood around 38th and Sheridan expects to see a multi-million-dollar economic boost, all thanks to a grocery store under construction right now. It's part of a broader plan to revitalize the area with more on this story. Here's News 8's multicultural reporter, Katira Wood.
The Enterprise Market owners say right now the closest grocery store is about 3 miles away and you cannot access it on the bus line. So they say they are looking forward to these doors opening because it will ease the burden of living in a food desert, but also bring in a much needed economic boost. It's one thing to have a vision. It's another to watch it come to life.
I'm excited of the change that's going to bring community. I'm excited to see my dreams come to fruition.
The new Indie Fresh Market is only a frame now, but it'll eventually be much more. Michael McFarland is one of the owners.
Yeah, sometimes, you know, older communities get looked over when, you know, progress is coming.
Marcus Williams is the other. Both men grew up in this community and they have watched it change and how years of disinvestment has impacted the area.
It was a desert over here, so, you know, people didn't have anywhere to eat, buying food out of gas stations. It's just a big break for the community, and I'm glad I can be a part of that.
This market is an extension of a plan to revitalize the community, a plan put in place by Cook Medical in partnership with Goodwill Commercial Services. With the walls going up, analysts evaluated the economic benefits of just this site alone.
Actually puts together models that we can utilize to help estimate how money flows through an economy whenever something new is created.
The IU Public Policy Institute estimates a starting economic impact of $11 million, with an additional $4.6 million brought in through wages, benefits, and neighborhood spending every year after.
It happens now. Every time you spend $1 in the community, that's money that goes into someone else's or another business's pocket.
This venture is a first of its kind for McFarland and Williams, but it's a job they take on with pride.
I just want to be Mr. Feed Indy, man. I just want to go to all the food deserts around the Indianapolis urban areas.
Reporting in Indianapolis, Katira Winfrey, Wish TV, wishtv.com, and follow us on Facebook.
Thank you. And then I'll wait for the moment. So again, thank you all for watching our brief video. Just to kind of set a little bit of stage. So again, I'm Ashley Gervitz. I have the pleasure of first being a resident to my Northeast Side neighborhood. And I actually serve as the chief executive for United Northeast Community Development Corporation. So I'll share up front, we are not a cooperative. We are in means of being development, but our development's different because we have to see the full picture of our neighborhood. Yes, we look at the past, we also too have to look at the current state and the things that have impacted our growth or not in the very future. So what we do as a development corporation is make sure that the everyday person, whether you are the neighbor that's been there 30, 40, 50 plus years, to maybe an anchor institution, as you heard in the video, Cook Medical is a newer one coming into our area, health department and so forth, that we know that there's power in our coming together. So our work that we do is all set in ensuring our everyday quality of life is disrupting our overall means where, hey, we know the impacts when Kroger left our neighborhood. We also know too that this is a time of disruption. How do we make sure our everyday individuals who are passionate about change and what we'll learn about today is our influence around our food building systems be lifted and leveraged and brought to light as the gem that they are. Okay, so this is what we'll be primarily focused in on. A little background, just to kind of set the stage into where we're at in our food ecosystem and building today. I came first from a policy background, days at the State House. A lot of those were dealing with constituent services calls. I mean, we're dealing with SNAP WIC benefits that were being disrupted, right? Why, just because I'm getting a new job, am I now losing my means of care? That could be one example. Or we're dealing with a state legislator, Representative Robin Shackelford, who covers part of our East Side, where she, for years upon years, was focused in on how to bring in greater means of healthy food financing. So those elements of community really have showed how we're making our community identity. Speed forward to the pandemic. Michael and Marcus, that you saw in the video, very much were at this time and space where they were wanting to tackle for our area where we cover about 57,000 residents. How do they take their little corner convenience and then try to work through the elements of being a sustainable food spot and creating access? Well, when you're starting off, you might have the means of, all right, I got this refrigeration system, but guess what? This one part is not working and now we're shut down. We just got this food order and now we can't take care of it. So we came in board as a developing partner. Again, I don't care how big you are, it can just be you. But if you have that part, that's our goal to continue to develop behind it. So as a result of that work, pandemic happening, it was truly important to figure out how do we fit the greater good of community and access in our area. George Floyd as well happened. And just to recap, while we definitely are grateful because there's smaller food producers such as Elephant Gardens, who are very much a part of the Black cooperative space in the work that they do. Youth engagement when we're thinking about Soul Food Project Indy. Things were being produced in our neighborhood, which is great. But there were some that were like, oh, well, because of George Floyd, this is how we're going to answer. We're just going to go throw a check. Now, trust me, capital's great. We're going to take capital if you're about supporting mission. But if we can make long-term impact, how can we create a new space for you to see that your impact can be more than that paycheck? So as there was Cook, and just to give a little bit of background around Cook Medical, it's very much real. COVID's real. They are in the ability of creating that of device manufacturing. So the means for IVs, creating the, we call them the rhinoplasties. So creating new access points, which you didn't have the cuts for breathing, all of that. Overseas, they were at first international. They're like, okay, there's too many moving dynamics. How do we bring our product back home? Indiana based, they're starting to see the means of where our community, we were at lacks of economics. We saw and feel every day the impacts when disinvestment happens. You take your money away, we're gonna have a true conversation with you about what you can do. Help us reconcile, bring new light. And I can tell you as much as you can from a development lens, but why not bring our everyday community so you can see the facets about how you can help improve. So moving forward, it was a basic community cleanup right at the corner at 38th and Sheridan. And with it, it's like, I want you to see while you serve, that being your time of knowing our neighbors. It happened to be something as simple as Michael and Marcus coming to volunteer, working with natural. So back to that natural conversation, they just started to talk about, hey, this not too far north, we had Kroger, they left, but we're a grocery store, we're trying to help fill that gap. I was like, the owner of Cook and then Goodwill Services as well was a partner there. I was like, wondering, where are you guys going? I mean, I know some of y'all are from Bloomington. Where are you going? You know, they're like, oh, we're going to go check out Michael and Marcus' shop. Next thing you know, the following week, we were just identifying how do we sustain them. Sustainability for us was not just taking a corner lot. They were leasing issues within the building, but it helped scale into this importance of utilizing all assets of the community. All those assets. Then around the time was when the, opportunity where Anthem, you'll see, decided that they wanted to provide funding to make a equitable food access system. That funds were given to LISC Indianapolis. LISC is a community development financial institution within the area. And one thing we like is that whether it's through placemaking, and you have community quality life building, they were there to help. But having that geographic approach, we decided, what can we do to make sure we all come together? And if it will be okay, we'll scroll down. We'll go down, we'll go down to right here. Initially, what we decided to do was have a coming of meetings where our organization has been focused in on broader quality life areas. Again, back to the point, we want to make sure we are doing community, we're bringing community into the fold. Secondly, building off of kind of the health aspect, financial institutional funding, there was Shelby Cummings at the time. She's transitioned into a new role, but still a blessing to our area. Decided that, hey, can we figure out ways of convening? We brought in LaShawna Triplett, who is very much that youth engagement and everyday outreach goals. So back to those canvassing. Yes, there was intimate conversations we were having. However, at the time of where we are at the time, they were one of our major ones to help us see the emergency relief of door deliveries and so forth. And then we brought in the research lens and then the Centers of Wellness for Urban Women, who was also too helping us see the holistic person. And the conversation led, of course, across the city. There was an initiative such as Equitable Food Access that was there in figuring out how can we become a overall sustainable food network. If it'll be okay, I'll go in there. Come on. Okay. There we go. So after a few months of discussions, we decided that we would make sure we were creating a resilient and inclusive community that was working to make sure the capital that sometimes is missing to get grassroots together, the technical expertise. So where we may have the expertise from the lens of knowing from a community asset lens where things are, how do we do the stakeholder engagement to connect the dots? to the everyday voices, trainings, information, us coming together to see that we can actually build a more stronger, healthy community through the lens of food. As a result, the timeline, we'll skip through, sorry. We'll keep going. I want to keep the fluff for y'all because I know I don't want to be the person in between you and food, literally. We'll keep going. We'll stay right here. And it was about a year-long process after there was the award announced for funds. We decided that we would create a food system in our area, which is not just specifically geographically bound, right? Because let's be honest, for an area where we cover about 57,000 residents, we might not have the expertise, nor maybe the production means in our neighborhood. But this lets us know, like, hey, if you want to be a part or we can help scale up, this is where we can help see that you're there, okay? And I want to mention, this is just a way for us to organize our thought. That doesn't mean this is the end all be all, because with time and things happening, we have to change. But this at least gives us a framework to see that everyone is there. So what we decided is to create the support system to help projects like, example, Indie Fresh Market that we started off today. It's one thing if we have a building and we can say, hey, here's the food, but how do we see that we're not coming back to this, you know, maybe 10, 15 years down the line, and then our grocery stores are closed? What we are trying to do is make sure that connections to consumers we see as Indie Fresh Market will be built, Michael and Marcus that you saw on the screen, are actually going through an intensive learning process right now. That means we've had so far, I think, 9 months of out at like going to other food places, such as in Chicago. There was time actually over in Cincinnati. So I want to connect with you about Ohio now. So, and seeing other models, does it work or not? And that whole goal was to see that once the actual doors open, that they're now in a position of being the best managing principal. What will happen is after, I think we've set it at a 4-year time frame, the cost of building will be complete. And what will happen is there's their equity in being a part of it will now have them have the keys. So they'll walk in and own outright a $6 million building. And they're 2 individuals from our neighborhood. So we're building that and seeing means of recovery, production, processing, move along the way. So other examples as the connection to consumers, back to a local cooperative like Elephant Gardens, their products, I mean, hands down, we love it. I get all my herbs, my seasoning, my groceries, everything from them, right? They will, as a result, have their products from our neighborhood now be placed on that shelf. So that's one aspect. Distribution, we know it's very important. And I'll be honest, we're still working through the edges about how we are doing it. So my ask is afterwards, if there's areas of development, I want to make sure you see this as a welcoming point, a learning point, because that's how we all grow, where we can make sure the best practices around distribution are there. How are things being processed? And even down to the later recovery, can we see that instead of taking food that may be not at expiration, but before we're finding earlier in our measures, it getting back into pantries, like locally to our area. So we're trying to be as food sustainable as possible right within our own backyard. We'll go to the next one. Yes, please. So back to this, and this is to kind of stress, and I really like what you were talking about around the means that cooperation is just like really about that moral compass we have as a community. What we've seen historically, and there's a little bit of frustration Where businesses right now, just because of the conditions that they see, they've judged the character of our neighborhood based off of what their performers are. Based off of, oh, X amount of rooftops, we don't have that right now. No, we got people that are hungry right now, right? So how can we create the partnerships along with the food systems and sustainability, see that if we can be the convener, there is the expectations of priorities we have, but be kind of that translating partner so we can keep that shared understanding and commitment. It makes it easier for us to plan long-term, well past, once a grant is done, well past the new market tax credit deadline or TIF agreements, because we forget once those 15-year or 30-year incentives come, what happens? We gotta disrupt it early. So through the partnership, this also allows us to help, and you see it's bigger for a reason, neighborhood. If the neighborhood's not at the table, we don't want to deal with it. And we've been doing other coalitions outside the food space to let you see our power of people in this corridor. You don't want to mess with us because we will shut it down. And we've shut some things down, you know? So if we have that, the policies, we can work with the city through the lens of whatever governing support they're providing, policies or means of variances. And then our funding source, just in case, and it's not just LISC, but LISC is through the Equitable Food Access Initiative. We're working together just to find the partnership. Hopefully that's providing the coverage of all of us to see our long-term impact be met. I'll get it next. So community role. So as a developer, it's very important that we move the ball moving forward. Excuse me. With that, we'll go to the next. And just to point out, a little shout out to, Midtown Indy, you're on the map here as well. But this corridor is where, through the initiative, we're building the equitable food system to bring in the fact where Anthem plays a factor. Let's be real. Anthem's like, oh, this is going to be our way for building up our membership. Membership is going to be good for, their means of service in the future. That's fine if you want that, but let's not forget the major goal. And our major goal is our food sustainable. Think in the long term, we don't want to have to fully rely on your insurance coverage so you can go and make a premium deductible in the hospital and the visits. Food is our medicine. So if you talk about health, you need to meet us with that. So we're covering one of the key things for there. We, again, from a boundary aspect, so back to the food system, we're utilizing our neighborhood boundaries, which includes, for us, it's Fall Creek Parkway, Shadeland 46th to 30th. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't, just stick to everybody within there, but this allows us to give away from us measuring our impact and there. There are various neighborhoods that you see listed. What's important as we're having the discussion, we've made sure our neighborhood leaders have elected someone from the neighborhood to also be a part of our planning table. We'll go ahead and continue. That itself allows us as the neighborhood convener to have those meetings. So we have, again, us to kind of coordinate the implementation, find out what are the projects that are happening on the ground, and then a community builder. And that community builder is helping us know and assess like the everyday means. If there is a project ready for implementation, we're coordinating that event and project support to see that lifted off the ground. And then there's another layer back to the survey. It's one thing, you kind of have those pre-surveys, like, are we on the right track? But it's so important that we do not lose our story. So our neighborhood food advocates are very much about the stories we're hearing to help validate our need, but also too being our everyday accountability partners, that if we are on the right track, are we missing certain things? The neighborhood food advocates are more of dual roles. So I know I've been picking a lot on Elephant Gardens, but as they are working in food production, they're also too allowing their network of who they convene with to make sure they're helping us stay aligned with that work. They're also neighborhood association leaders. We do have a couple of youth advocates that are part of it, and they really ensure there's always active engagement around those supports. And I know I got 5 minutes, so watching that, I'll continue on here. Why we want to do this, and if there's anything at all to lead up to major thing, when you're convening, if it could be, through a cooperative network, but for us, we utilize the principles of cooperation. So all stakeholders know if you are a part of it, this is what we do. There's a saying I have, all progress moves at the speed of trust. We're not going nowhere if we don't trust where we're going. So we ensure that there's always buy-in from the community before we move principles forward. Utilizing the convening power. So as an example, through some of the things we saw before, we've never been able to really grapple around the facts. We had Devington Plaza. Devington Plaza for our area was everything, anchored by a grocery store, all of that. So we utilize the means of that story. And I was just sharing earlier with Mr. Healy that if we know that pain, any development that wants to come in, before you even do a variance, even try to file to building anything in, we utilize that as our way to say, stop, meet with us as a community. Does it align with our needs? Does it address our hurts and we can reconcile together? And Alvin's over there probably laughing at me a little bit because we do a little bit of, not in a negative way, but in some of our other spaces, we're accountable to bring our social capital, and that's the people power, into these decision spaces. So the convening power helps us make sure agencies, developers, before you even put any more money in, that money means nothing if it's not bringing in our collective power. Operational excellence, so identifying those strategies, policies, cannot stress it enough. Your profit is not for your pro forma, it's about the purpose of revitalizing and bringing to light what our community really is. We gotta get rid of those misconceptions. So finding ways of us managing opportunities is very critical. And we'll go to the next slide. And the last thing I'll end on, because I know I don't want to rush too much and give time for questions, but why and how? While we're building this equitable food system, trying to bring in the sustainability, food is not just the only thing that moves the community forward. Our area, we're in the process of identifying ways of strategic action around a total of 9 different areas. Food is something I see as an equalizer for everybody. So if you may have your primary focus on food, there's some secondary things to let you see the connections. When we talk about earlier, you were talking about health, you were on a health discussion. So we also have in our neighborhood development of equitable, well, let's see, Eskenazi Health, they're getting ready to build a new pavilion there. Well, guess what? From a development lens, one is your development organizing a community engagement. So while you're building your building, does your building fit the need where we just don't want to be fueled with medications? Does your facility, as you build it, have a community space? You're able to really say not just the trending of social determinants of health, but you're really showing what health is. Housing is medicine. That's a strategy, right? Food, as they're trying to figure out maybe fresh bucks programs or things of that, they see there's also a secondary lens, really 3 lenses. Does it connect to people? Does it help another pillar of quality of life? And then lastly, are you really staying for the long term on mission of us all helping? Other aspects, just to briefly share, because again, I want to be mindful of time. if we have everyday people focus in on the work, then that everyday work will make it easier for us to identify our everyday grassroots projects, but also the bigger ones that are more institutional based. So if there's any major takeaways from it, you have the power, convene around the purpose about what brings you together, but see your impact is tied to multiple areas of quality of life. That quality of life support ultimately can help shape and change the trajectory about how a neighborhood's perceived. And we'll try to move forward. I apologize, I may have rushed through it all, but I want to be mindful of that. So, yes.
I remember my grandma in public housing, and my old uncle didn't have any legs. They brought in a very on the theme of Fresh Market, but it was somebody who was making money.
Yes.
My grandma would say, she'd say, Charlie boy, I used to pay this much for this, and I go right on the corner and I can't afford it. I'm going, and I was probably 16 or 17 years old, first time I came in contact with this food apartheid scenario.
Apartheid,
Okay.
yes.
So what I'm concerned about, my question is, how do we maintain costs, that community, that area, I'm very familiar with it, how do we maintain costs so that not the reputation of my grandma coming to that shop, and I can't buy, I want to get a food thing or whatever it is, I can't buy it because it's too much money. Of course, again, inflation, forget the inflation, but just making sure that the people who are being serviced by this can afford it. Are there mechanisms to maintain costs, like the costs, or the ways to maintain costs so that people who really need it
Yes.
are impacted negatively, other than people wanting to go to the whole pay second and spend money out there.
Yes. And I'm so glad you mentioned it. As you can see, like food systems and how they build, they're very complex in the various touch points. But that is the number one concern we've had. Sometimes when we're looking at building, they're like, how do we maintain the affordability? So we don't have to raise the price of the food just because maybe the profit margin is very little. Your profit is in your people. So if you can gain one, I think the stakeholders around that are able to understand, like, hey, social and corporate responsibility, we need a subsidy. And another project we have in the area, Eskenazi is a great example. They will be looking to do health equity work. So if it's there, we're actually in the process for our geographic area creating a relief fund. So that's one thing. But also too, Michael and Markets with the grocery store, not only will have our local connection to growers, but it's back to that tiered system. We will also too have a national vendor as backup, right? What that will help us do is make sure the prices are always low to be able to compete with the Walmart, like a Kroger, a Meijer, and so forth. So there are a lot of things that have been built into their financials to help find the relief. So that does not happen to disrupt our mission. So yes, that is a major bit. Secondly, with our overall means of how we're building out the vendor selections for our overall community. So the project implementation dollars even acknowledge the everyday neighborhood empowerment. So if we can find even who's building the building, we have a hyper-local approach about who's hired. So the grocery store, we're trying to have that be our second project with 100% minority participation as far as who's building the buildings. If we're hiring local, that means we're strengthening our local dollar local. And that is our other way secondarily, that if we can help fuel the financial burdens that are happening within the homes, systematically, it makes it easier for us to even preserve our local power. So I hope that's helpful.
All right, so we're gonna have to close out the discussion formally in this room, but you will be able to continue discussions out as we break for lunch. We'll be back at 1:30, and our lunch is gonna be catered by the in-house catering company from P30. Ashley, before we close out for it, could you please tell people ways to reach out to you and continue the conversation?
Yeah.
Sorry.
And also put the contact info in the QA.
Got you.
Yes. So I have some cards I'll leave too, but my email is the best. And that is Ashley, ASHLEY .Gurvitz, GURVITZ at AMUimpact.org. The email is great, but also too, in honoring this space, I'm a millennial. This is always near me. Feel free, call, text. I'm a great texter, and my cell is 317-478-1141. So I want to make sure to stay connected and continue the conversation. So, but thank you all so much. And I hope you guys too enjoy lunch, and I'll be around too to help you.
That one more second. The caterer who's based out of here had an issue with the kitchen, and he's just about ready to put the food out, but it's not on